Michael and Tim from Burke and Bootaloo Architects, and we're presenting Cranbourne Secondary College.
This is a VSBA job for Cranbourne Secondary College. The existing campus is a cohort of about 1,400 students, and it's quite heavily penned into the southeast corner here with the existing buildings of education, spilling out slightly with a VCE building and another education building here. There's an existing community centre in the centre of the campus, which is used as a student use, but also after hours as a performance space. However, the existing school kind of out of bounds area was defined by these buildings, and there was quite a lot of students hemmed in within the campus itself.
The building with the hand on here is a community facility as well, so it's a theatre, community theatre, which is shared with external groups. And the boundary that Tim's sort of referring to are these fences down here. This is all basically out of bounds, this zone out here, filled with detritus of buildings that like sheds and offices and things, and where bad things happen, kids smoke, assaults and the like have occurred out there, so sort of a no man's land.
We had a look at different functions. So following a master plan stage, we identified that the school was in need of a new double court gym for 2 competition grade basketball and netball courts. We looked at integrating it on this kind of west-hand side of the campus to try to open up this side of the campus to make it useful for students and try to create a wider range of education spaces as well as social spaces towards the outside. So we looked at kind of pairing it with the other community use building, being the theatre, and trying to see how the spaces could be co-located together to create one kind of frontage for the community and represent the school in one frontage.
But a certain amount of the funding was due to be spent on has been spent on the performance space as well, and the theatre. But the design options all looked at kind of ways to connect and activate this end of the campus.
So the site plan that we actually ended up going with was a site plan that there's an existing kind of double basketball court shed which started life as an external basketball court. They put a roof on it, then they put walls on it. So we used that building to our advantage, creating a hard edge to the campus with a new building to the north and the amenities in between, so that they could be used by the existing kind of shed and the new facilities. But what that did was really open up this side of the campus. There was an existing memorial gardens which was previously in the out of bounds space, as well as demolished this series of sheds, outbuildings and services buildings, which really opened up this space to create really kind of double the size of the campus in terms of space that students can use freely, but also create kind of outdoor classrooms that can be used by different cohorts and different students. So the project itself was, the funding was largely for this double court basketball court, but by positioning it where we've positioned it, we've allowed it to open up to this kind of landscaped area, and which can be used for education facilities. But we also looked at this existing building, which there wasn't too much funding to be had for this existing building, but we thought the most advantageous way to use it is, rather than repurposing and reoriented the spaces for classrooms, we wanted to open up to this facade and really kind of make sure that which was a previously hard edge to the campus, really opened up to the landscape. So this was much more heavily used with a lot of openings from the new building, but also from the existing building.
So sorry, just so the landscape was all students were allowed into this previously out of bounds zone, and there's supervision from the staff area here, and as Tim mentioned, there's sort of penetrations through this older building to allow for supervision through there. The Indigenous landscape, there's a cohort of Indigenous students at the school, and there was a consultation with that group, which sort of led to the evolution of this landscape, which included sort of mounds from earth that was excavated under the gym. But there's sort of 3 zones for women and men's yarning circles, and there was the idea that potentially this would become a gathering space for the Indigenous community, this part of eastern Melbourne, because the closest other one is in Hastings, a long way away. So there's quite a bit of consultation involved in that.
The gym itself is a competition grade gym for 2 courts. It also has a retractable seating for up to 1,000 students, so the whole school can meet in this space for assemblies. For the first time ever, they've never had a space where they can actually meet as a whole, which is great in terms of for the students coming together and having a sense of school identity. There's a staff work area which has space for about 8 staff members, but also it heavily views so they can have views over the existing, the new landscape. But also they've got a new window into the existing courts, so if those courts are being used, they can observe passively these spaces, but also onto the new courts. Otherwise, there's 4 change rooms to allow for segregation of students and to allow more flexibility rather than just male and female change rooms. And there's also connections to the existing court, or there's corridors to allow for future connections to the existing courts. So the top row is a couple of the existing conditions. So you can see that there's this is the existing kind of corner to the Performing Arts building with the green cladding, and there's a series of 3 or 4 sheds and water tanks. This area here, if you arrived on a school bus, this was your main entrance to the school. So you'd walk down this corridor around a few different fences and into the campus itself, which is kind of an afterthought of decisions. So we demolished all these buildings and so reclad the existing gym and put these new windows at ground level in and new entranceways, which typically you might not do in a Performing Arts building. However, it's just enlightened the space itself, repurposed the space that allowed for these connections outwards into this landscaped area.
The building itself just creates an edge. It's just a very simple box with a red sort of lantern that pops out at the point of connection. So used for wayfinding and day and night, because the building is used heavily. It's leased out 6 nights a week, I think. Thanks. So it has a kind of lantern quality through it.
So the building itself goes, the thermal air tightness was a consideration of the design, which isn't usually the case in VSBA projects. So we had quite a high spec wall system and louver windows at low level on the north and high level on the south to create passive ventilation, allowing for the 1,400 students in there at once in quite a nice thermal environment without air conditioning.
The red lantern creates, coincidentally, a C for Cranbourne, which the client was really pleased about.
So, yeah, this is just an aerial view of this landscaped area that we created with the 3 different external timber canopies, separated such that Indigenous men and women can be segregated away from each other after the consultation.
And you can see there's a bus there, so that just at the bottom this was the drop-off point for a large portion of students, and so rather than being back of house, it's now a proper kind of space. These are some of those external learning areas.
Prefabricated timber construction.
And how they're arranged, and that's the final